Welcome. Today I want to show you how to make birds in the air, a quilt symbolic of flight or migration. During the Underground Railroad, a clever quilter could indicate a direction for fugitives to travel just through the choice of fabrics and placement of blocks. Well, in this Birds in the Air quilt, notice the blocks in one area and they're lighter, creating an arrow pointing north. Well, I got the idea for this quilt from Debra Coates. Now, Debra was the wife of Quaker Lindley Coates of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. They were abolitionists and ran Safe House number 5 on the Underground Railroad. Now, this is a photo of her Birds in the Air quilt. And right here in the center, I want you to notice the light area and then the direction just pointing north. Right down through the middle are 2 bindings. Well, according to oral family history, 2 granddaughters of Debra could not agree on who should inherit this precious quilt. So with the Quaker sense of equality, it was decided to cut the quilt equally in half. And when the raw edges were bound over, this small central image was almost totally obscured. It says right here, "Deliver me from the oppression of man." When the quilt was passed on to a single descendant, the bindings were open and the image was brought together again. What a story. Well, this quilt is just another way of helping emancipate the slaves. So let's take flight and make birds. Teresa made this beautiful twin-sized Birds in the Air quilt. It's just wonderful, out of reproduction, 1855, 1870 fabrics. Now, the birds are set on point, and then there's side triangles that are all the same background fabric. And then she finished it off with a striped border and then a wider border, multicolor. It's beautiful. Now, it looks scrappy, but actually, there is a method to our madness because each block is made 8 times. That way you can get some assembly line into a scrap quilt. So I know you can see the pink well. Let's just check. Make sure there's 8 pinks in this quilt. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. They're just scattered throughout. And then down here, 5, 6, 7, 8. You didn't even realize that each of the blocks were repeated 8 times. It's beautiful. Well, for a twin size, there's 77 blocks in it. So if you divide by 8, how's your math today? You need to have 10 different sets of fabric. Now, this is a great quilt for fat quarters. If you want to have just one background, this is a great one that you could recreate each time, do that over and over again. Or if you want to go to like a large scale print like this one, these are great. Very traditional, this old check. And then how about those 10 fat quarters, some brown, wonderful, that chrome yellow with a touch of red. We've got a large scale blue here. Double pink, very 1855. And then there's overdyed green. How about some more blues and the copper tone madder? Perfect prints to go with it. Actually, Nancy Kirk designed these after looking at some very old original fabrics. Just great to use for that look. Now, the method that I'm going to show you is a little tricky. If we're making 8 blocks at a time, what we're going to do is 2 blocks 4 different times. This is a 2-block method, and this is what the block looks like. You can see it's got the 3 geese up at the top, or the 3 birds, and then 1 large bird right down here. Well, it's the triangles right along here. They're like half triangles. These are piece squares. Well, these 2 blocks start out like this. You actually have the piece squares. There's total of 6 in each one. And then see how there's rectangles going through here? And those are the spacing for the seam allowance, so that whenever you take and put it right to the medium, the large medium piece, and cut it in half with no waste, that's how you recreate that block. Actually, I think I started at the end and went backwards. How about let's start in the beginning, and I'll show you. Now remember, you can use fat quarters, it's great. But to do those 8 blocks, you need to start out with background, 3 6-inch squares. And then your medium or your dark, again, 3 6-inch squares. To do the rectangles, they're 2.5 inches by 3 1/4 inches. You need 12 of them. And then for the 2-block method, if we're going to do 8, you need to have 4. And they are 7 inches by 8 inches. Oh, see if you've gotten that all written down and have it memorized. So let's start out with the piece squares. Let's just take one of these and one of the dark and one of the background. Just flip those 6-inch squares right sides together. Take a 6-inch by 12-inch ruler. It's perfect. Get them all lined up with each other and draw a diagonal line corner to corner, like so. Permanent marker, you're actually going to cut on the line, so you don't need to worry about actually making it too dark. We're going to cut on that in just a minute. So draw an X on your 6-inch squares, and you're going to do 3 just like this one. Then take your 1/4-inch foot. You want to make a 1/4-inch seam and 15 stitches to the inch. I know that's a rather tight stitch, but we're not going to be doing back stitching, so you want to make sure that your stitches do not pop out. Well, when you get to the bottom end of that line, just turn it around and just start right up. Go the opposite way like this. And you would be assembly line sewing. Just get your Underground Railroad train, get all your cars going right through there. Okay, now I sewed on both sides of one diagonal line. All you're going to do is just turn it around and then sew once again on the opposite side. Just make sure they're staying together. You might want to pin them so that they don't shift on you down one side and around the other. Oh, once you learn this method, you can use this on all of your triangle piece squares. It's great. Now, because I just stitched on the bias, you know what? I like to just do a little pressing because you just distort it slightly. It's on the bias, you might stretch it just a bit. So just press it good. And now you want to cut this into 8 different pieces. Start with your 6x12 ruler, and since there's no line to follow, line up the 3-inch line right along that edge and cut it first into 4. Oops, keep them together. 3 inches this way, go across right through the center, and then you can go ahead and cut on the lines. So you cut a total of 8 pieces out of that 6-inch square, out of the 2 6-inch squares. Boy, mine are shifting. Got to hold those down tight. Now, we want to make a total of 24 of these piece squares. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can do it. You can just take this piece before you go on, just take it to your press and just set that seam and open and press so that the seam is behind the dark. Now, typical of Quiltin' a Day, this is a little oversized. So if you take your 6x6 ruler and you just line up the diagonal line right down through the middle on that seam like this, then you actually want to trim it to 2.5 inches. So I'm going to go up the right and across the top for 2 trims, then take the corner I just trimmed, turned it around, and then trim it a second time. So it's a perfect 2.5 inches. Well, that way, that's one way that you can square your block up to 2.5 inches. But I have another ruler to show you, and I think this goes even quicker. You know me and my rulers, always trying to think of something fast. Now this one is a triangle square up. We want to square it up to 2.5 inches. So I'm going to take the 2.5-inch line and just place it so that it's just up above the stitching line. This way, you only need to make one trim along the edge. It's not pressed open yet. And then just cut off those corners, cut off those little tips like that. And you just want to sit and do the whole set, the 2.5-inch line right in front of it, like this. Trim one side, cut off those little ears, and then once you have them all trimmed up, you press. Just place them on the pressing mat, dark side up, a little steam, and lift. And I like to just take the tip of my iron right into the point and just go across there. This is the bias. You don't want to stretch it at this point. Lift it open, take the tip of the ruler in, just across and across. And these should also be perfect 2.5 inches. Well, let me just go ahead and finish squaring up all 24 2.5-inch squares. I have all 24 pieces squared up to 2.5 inches, and now you divide them into 3 piles. The first stack should have 12 in it. The next one has 4 in it, and then the last one has 8. Oh, how's your math today? And then take those 2.5 by 3 1/4 inch rectangles from the background and just stack them right beside the stack of 12 piece squares. They're all turned right side up, and the reason that I turned this in this direction is so that I don't have to fight that seam. Well, I want to just go ahead and assembly line sew by flipping the rectangle right onto the piece square, get those matched up at the top edge, and then just stitch right along there with that 1/4 inch seam. Oh, and I just have to have my stiletto to help me keep those edges lined up, and just keep on pushing them right through, flipping one after the other. You know, we heard the story about Debra Coates in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and her signal quilt, and how she was involved in part of the journey, part of the flight, or those birds in the air. Well, there's another good story that tells about a man that traveled to Philadelphia, and he went there in a little different manner than most of the runaways. Well, his name was Henry Brown, and he ended up being called Henry Box Brown. Now, Henry Box Brown hit upon the idea of being crated up and shipped directly to Philadelphia as freight. What a good idea. So he built his box, and his box was 2 feet by 3 feet. That's not very big. And then it was 2 feet by 8 inches deep. Not big at all. Well, he crawled in that box, and this is what he took with him. He took some biscuits and some water, and he took a little tool along with him so that he could drill some holes for air. Well, that makes great sense to me. So now I have all 12 all sewn in this big long chain, and I'm such an assembly line person. I'm just going to take these and just set the seam right across the top like this, and then after they're all set, then I'm just going to go right down along there and just lift them up and flip them open. Okay, now let's look at these 4. We've got them all along here, and these are the middle sections, the middle 4 sections. And I want to add another piece. I'm going to take my stack of 4, and we're actually going to add it along the side. And it's kind of fun right now because we're going to create it as if it were a broken wing in our birds in the air. And I find the best way to do this is just to flip the whole stack over like this, take that group of 4 and turn it like that. I've got it all turned. This 4 is turned wrong side up. This is right side up. And once again, that seam is going to be going down so that you don't have to fight it. Instead of flipping, I just lift it and slide it right under. Let me get how about we'll just do 1 or 2 of these. That'll go very easily. Get your stiletto, line that up along there, and then just take the second one. And you'll see you have just 2 more that you have to do, but you know me, I'm going to be like Henry Box Brown, be impatient. Get my traveling done quick. So now, even though I need to have 4, let me just cut off 2. Now I'm setting all of these seams up so that they're going to lay just perfect whenever we're done. I'm going to lay them so that the rectangle is on the top. This is the rectangle that I just sewed. I'm going to set that seam and I'm just going to lift it up and over and go right in here so that the seam is actually behind the rectangle. So something like that. I've got broken wings. And now if you look in my stack, I have a total of 4 right along here. There's all the center pieces. Now there's only one more unit. I still have a stack of 8, and I have these 8 that are all chained together. All works out mathematically, and I want to turn them also so that I have them upside down like this, and I'm going to take and turn my piece squares so they're like that. Seam going down one more time. Just move this close and just lift it up, put it right underneath. And then you can see you just go assembly line sewing the whole way down. Let me match up these outside edges and just keep them. You know, I think one of the hardest things about this pattern is just keeping these triangles going in the right direction. But gosh, who cares, you know, if they fly off. The pattern is all regimented and in order, but what if the birds just go wild? Okay, so you just keep on sewing until you have a total of 8. And let me just go ahead and cut off the 2 that I have, because now I'm just going to drop them with the piece that I just added, the piece squares, set that seam, and then just open and press it towards that piece. Now these are the 2 outside edges that I just did. This is the center. These are the 2 outside edges. So let me cut these apart and let's see if we can lay them out. We have this one piece here. We have our middle piece right here, and it's going to go like this. And then we need to have the other piece so that it goes like that. And so if you look, you can see there are 3 going in this direction, 3 going in this direction, and this rectangle area going right down through there is for the seam and the cutting. Okay, so let's just go ahead and take this and flip it right sides together, and right in this spot right here, there are seams that you lock together there, and oh, look at this, is the best part. No matching of the seam, but match the outside edge. No matching of the seam. Yay, that's the best part. Okay, so let me line that up and just use your stiletto, match up that seam, and especially if you use contrasting thread as you're sewing along here, then you can see where your stitches need to be crossing, and I'll just show you that just as soon as I get this one end. Now remember, we're doing 2 patches right here, 2 patches. So cross perfectly right there on the front side, and on the back side, again, the same thing. Let's open it up, and here's the middle piece. We're going to just take this piece, flip it right sides together to it. Once again, there's nothing that you need to match right here in the middle, and this piece is going to go in opposite directions. This is going down, this is going up. Those seams locked together, and we are nearly done. Let me just sew this very quickly. You know, think about how all of the people traveled on their journey. They spent a lot of time during the day. They would just rest in the woods. They would stay out of everybody's sight. They would hide out in barns. They would hide under bridges, hide out during the daytime, and at the night, then they would really run, move fast on their journey, on their flight. Okay, now the pieces are sewn together, and right here, this is just like the flying geese. We want to work in triangles, like this is one triangle and this is the other. So right here at these seams, I'm going to take a little clip. This is the background rectangle. Take a clip so that I can push the seams flat this way and this half, and then flat in the other direction, you'll see. So that we can just take this, press in one direction this way, in half of it, turn it around, and then press in half the second way. Get that flat, and now we are ready for the rectangles. Press it on the right side. The rectangles are the 7 by 8, and I'm just going to take these pieces, they are oversized, and just place this right in the center of it, and go back to the 6 by 12 ruler, line up the diagonal line so that it's straight with the piece of patchwork. And when you line up the diagonal line or the 45-degree line, you can see that the seams, the ruler just touches right on those seams. I'm going to go right down here like that. So that'll be the stitching line for the one patch. Let's just turn it around and do the same thing. Line up the 45-degree line along here. Take the marker, and it just goes right through those stitchings, especially if you have contrasting thread. And the distance in between these two is a 1/2 inch. Oh, we're so good on our math. Okay, now it's best if you start on the right side of the line, and at this time, if you just stitch on the line, hold those seams down and stitch right across the point, hold it right along here. Now, actually, if you have a multi-presser foot, you might want to switch and use that. Okay, I went on the line, and now I'm just going to switch and stitch down the second line and raise my presser foot so I don't catch it. Whoops, just missing a little bit of line right there. I'm going to just yes. And now, those two patches are completely sewn. Here's the 1/4 inch in between here. And so all I'm going to do is take the 1/4 inch line on the ruler and line it up on one of the stitches so that I can just cut right down through the middle. And finally, I have the two patches. So I'm just going to take and press it with the large triangle on the top, open, press right into it. Oh, perfect. Perfect birds. Those 3 in a row, perfect. And the second one right here. Now, these patches should square up to approximately 6.5 inches. We're going back to that triangle square up ruler again. And this time I'm going to line up the 6.5 inch line right down through the middle. The 6.5 inch line, and you can see that on the one side, the background is perfect 6.5, but there's just a little extra oversized that I'm going to trim off on one side. Let me turn it around so I can actually get the second side too. Line up the 6.5 inch line. You can use any ruler right now and square it up to 6.5. Maybe yours will just be 6 3/4. And so, oops, sliver trim just a little bit. So now I have more blocks to make so I can sew this together. These birds are so colorful, it looks like an aviary on the table. Now that your blocks are finished, you can go ahead and do the straight set, which is probably the easiest one to do, because when you lay them out in rows like this, all you need to do is just flip them right sides together and sew vertical rows from top to bottom and then go across. And the best thing about the straight set is that all you need to do is match the outside edges. It's easy. Or you could go ahead and do a diagonal set as this one. Now lay them out in diagonal rows. The sides come from 10.5 inch squares. Now these are just the background squares. Cut at 10.5 inches, but you want to go ahead, cut on one diagonal with your 6 by 24, then turn it and cut a second time so that your squares are cut into 4ths. And they will fit right along here on the edges, across the sides, the top, and the bottom. And the corners come from 2 6-inch squares. These just get cut on one diagonal. Let's cut that one and put it in place. And that'll go right here like this. Oh, it is looking good. Now, if you want to just add to that brightness, you can go ahead and cut 10.5 inch squares from all of your other scraps, and then just place those around the outside edge. Put a different one. Oh, we've got to move that around. Make sure the same fabrics, the same colors are not touching each other. It is so beautiful. Well, why don't you just sew all your birds and get them ready for flight?